Good morning and welcome. It's so good to be with you this morning. I'm Catherine Massey, Director of Music, and we will have the choir sing our hymnals. We're still being very cautious in our protocol for COVID, so we will continue to be masked. And we ask that you hum heartfully and feel free to move also. There's a Jason Shelton hymn coming up, and you'll probably want to move a little bit with that as well. So our gathering song is number 360. Here we have gathered, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit as the choir sings, and you can hum. And while you're doing that, you can put your phone on worship mode.
Our opening words this morning are by Thomas Jefferson. Man, once surrendering his reason, has no remaining guard against absurdities, and like a ship without a rudder is the sport of every wind. With such persons, gullibility, which they call faith, takes the helm from the hand of reason, and the mind becomes a wreck. Our chalice lighting words this morning are from two famous Americans. The first is Arthur Ashe, and the second is Helen Keller. Arthur Ashe, the African-American tennis champion, spoke these words. Well, first of all, I spoke these words to the February Board of Trustees meeting because I thought they were appropriate for the board. And I think they're appropriate for the congregation. So that's why I'd like to repeat them this morning. He said, while speaking to a group of nonprofit leaders, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And this morning, I'm a member of a gratefulness network, and I get a gratefulness wording every morning. And so I was really struck by the one that I got this morning. And so I thought I would pass it along. It's from Helen Keller. And she said, "Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much." I thought that was really kind of profound. So, it's lit. Okay, thank you, Mark. Now let us have our affirmation of covenant. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in saying our church's affirmation of covenant, and then humming the doxology, which the choir will sing first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to search for knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus we do covenant with each other. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. We welcome those who are in the sanctuary today, and as well as those who are streaming using Zoom. I am John Seeley, and I'm your service associate for this morning, and Claire Shawhan is leading worship this morning. She has chosen some words that I'll be speaking, but I want to give Claire credit for choosing those words. And also Katie, I think, chose some words too in the meditation. So we are delighted to be with you this morning. As you all know, Unitarian Universalism has no creed and no dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms. Everyone, truly everyone, is welcome at this church. You can learn more about our church and check the events calendar at our website, UUCLC.org. If you are visiting us today, we'd love to meet you. If you are in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're from, and how you heard about the church. That's the big three: your name, where you're from, and how you heard about the church. And Claire will hand you a microphone if there is anybody who's visiting us today. Is there anyone?
I got to do my three things.
You can do them.
Jane Harris. I'm really from Lawrence, Kansas, but I went in Green Valley, Arizona. I'm here with my sister, my older sister, Jean Gilbert, and obviously that's how I heard about your church.
Good morning. I am Kayanne Covey, and my husband and I are full-time RVers. So we're looking to settle down. We've been doing this for 8 years, and maybe it will be less cruises. So.
Thank you. My name is John Hamilton. I'm not unfamiliar to this church. I was a member of this church perhaps 20 years ago. Hale Huber knows me. I raised in this time period because I appreciate having a co-member, a four-legged type. We have a dog here. Yes, I have a dog at home. I'm hoping my dog at home is a puppy will learn how to behave in our church, and I can bring him. So one thing further I want you to be aware of. Earth Day is coming up. Earth Day is coming up. And there should be nothing closer to our hearts than the earth. I bring to you a message of what it may mean to us. I would like to ask the church if we would sponsor a seat on Earth Day in our community. I would provide the documentation. Thank you.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. It's a pleasure to get to know you just a touch. If you are joining us through Zoom, you can introduce yourself by turning on your mic and your camera. Do we have any visitors on Zoom? None? Okay. If for those of you who did visit us in the congregation here, we would ask that you please fill out a visitor's card in the lobby or leave your email in the Zoom chat, which won't be necessary, so that we can invite you to other services and activities at this church. Directly following our service, there will be a time to fellowship with one another under the portico, just out these doors and down towards the RE area. Under the portico, we will enjoy fellowship and conversation outside in the fresh air. If you wish, please stay on Zoom, and the link to the chat will be available to you, and we hope you join us in that way. Today, I have these announcements. At this week's roundtable, David Steele will present an interactive session on the concept of resilience, a trait we all need during these difficult times. Please join us at 2 o'clock via Zoom. You can find the Zoom link in the worship invitation email that Sherry sent out on Friday. Come prepared both to think and to participate. And the second announcement is that this Wednesday, we are once again offering a caring conversation at a new time, 9 a.m. Come when you can and stay as long as you wish for the 3 C's. Any guesses? Well, you're close. You're close, Lennon. Caring, conversation, and caffeine. Also, we'd like you to save May 7th as the date for our annual auction event and the evening at the races. It's from 5 to 9 o'clock on May 7th. I'm sure you'll hear more about that as the weeks go forward. The hospitality committee members have decided not to resume coffee hours this Sunday due to the continued high incidence of the COVID-19 Omicron. We know it's beginning to slide down, so we'll look forward to the hospitality committee announcement when we can get together for goodies and coffee and water and that type of thing. We are not setting a specific return date for now. This is a very dynamic situation, which we are monitoring very closely. We will be back to serving the congregation as soon as it is safe to do so. Please enjoy fellowship with one another under the portico that stretches from here to the RE building. And from David Rice, I have these words. Please remind folks to nominate their favorite charity to be a recipient of the coming beginning April 1st, Change for Change. The process for nomination and selection is presented in the current edition of the Light. And you can call David, I'm sure, if you want to find out more information. Thank you all for being with us today.
What If? Written by Samantha Berger, illustrated by Mike Kirito. With a pencil and paper, I write and draw art to create many stories that come from my heart. But what if that pencil one day disappeared? I'd fold up the paper till stories appeared. And what if that paper was no longer there? I'd chisel the table and then carve the chair. And what if there wasn't a chair here at all? I'd chip and I'd peel at the paint on the wall. And what if there wasn't a wall anymore? I might build a story from boards in the floor. Without any floor, I could still use the land and sketch out a tale in the dirt with my hand. I could still shape the leaves. I could still sculpt the snow. I could still plant the flowers and make kingdoms grow. Without any land, I would still use the light. Invent shadow stories the sun would ignite. If there was no light, I would still use my voice to sing out my stories, to chant and rejoice. I'd still have my body to twist and to bend, to dance out my stories beginning to end. If I had nothing, but still had my mind, there'd always be stories to seek and to find. If I know nothing but one bit of fate, as long as I live, I will always create. As long as I live, I will always create. The end.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn. With joy we claim the growing light, with words by Samuel Longfellow.
It's now time in our service for lighting the small votives right to my left. In beloved community, we know that our joys are enhanced when we share them. In the same way, we acknowledge a milestone our friends and family celebrate this precious moment in time with us. And of course, when sorrows come, as they will, sharing them helps lessen the grief and begin our healing. Many of us have worries, concerns, joys, and sorrows that we carry in our hearts that are hard to put into words. We also may have things we are profoundly grateful for and want to acknowledge. Let's take this moment now to light a candle and allow the flame to share what lies deep within us or help us let go of our woes. So please. As human beings sharing space on this planet at this time in our in our history, we all hold hopes and dreams, wounds and worries in our hearts. Remembering this, let us treat one another with patience and with love. Our meditation this morning is long, it's meaty, and it's worth it. So I want to ask you to have patience as I read this and share it with you. It's called My Commitments to Myself by Laura Mancuso. I take care of myself first because I am deserving of exquisite care. I take care of myself to maintain the capacity to help others. I move and stretch my body every single day. I spend time in nature, attuning my senses to the earth's wisdom. I ration my daily exposure to the news. I identify and assess credible sources of information. I protect myself from being overwhelmed by information about the pandemic. I pace myself. I sit with reality, with the reality of uncertainty and impermanence, and allow it to temper my desire to control. I listen without judgment to others' reactions, which may be different from mine. I forgive myself and others when stress brings out our shadow selves. I feel fear fully when I am fearful. I experience sadness fully when I am sad. I allow anger fully when I am angry. I relish joy fully when I am joyful. I seek out healthy pleasures and indulge in them without guilt. I remind myself that feelings are transient states that move through me. They do not last, and they do not define me, nor do my thoughts. I balance my drive for self-improvement with compassionate acceptance of myself as I am right now. I initiate contact with loved ones to let them know I hold them in my heart. I seek out with increased sensitivity those who are the most vulnerable. If possible, I share my resources with those who need help to survive. When possible, I move away from people, situations, and experiences that do not serve the highest good. I strengthen my connection to my sources of spiritual strength so that I continue to be replenished. I acknowledge the nearness of death as a key motivator for living a full life. I pray for the suffering of all beings to cease. I grieve my losses and celebrate my successes. I remain open to new ways of being, surprising sources of joy, and unanticipated discoveries every day. You know what I meant? Long but meaty. Our reading this morning is from Victor Stenger. Science and religion are fundamentally incompatible because of their unequivocally opposed epistemologies, the separate assumptions they make concerning what we can know about this world. When a scientific theory disagrees with the data are discarded. It is foolish to take anything on faith, because which is the belief based on faith. Science is not going to change its commitment to truth. We can only hope religion will change its commitment to nonsense.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine then all the people but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. Nothing to kill or die for. The brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
Good morning, spectacular UUers and visitors. It's such a joy to be with you all to share my journey of Episcopal priest kid to a UUer. The other times I've been up here is performance at the auction as June Carter Cash with Johnny Cash over here, or one of my wacky skits to try to recruit members on whatever committee I'm serving on at the time. I'm going to begin this morning with some storytelling. These are fun stories about my brothers and I as a preacher's kid, and they're true. And when I do my storytelling, I like to be closer to my audience, but I will keep a social distance. Johnny Cash over here has volunteered to hold on to my costumes as I move along into my storytelling. By the way, this is not real leopard skin. I would never wear real fur because someone from the animal advocacy group might be lurking about the sanctuary. We have Jeannie Gilbert, and I bet David Steele is zooming in. It's not real. And great job, animal advocacy group. Keep it up. Here we go. It's the 1960s, and many women are donning a Jackie Kennedy-style pillbox hat. And my mother followed suit. As a priest family, they were expected to entertain their parishioners quite often. One of the times when they were entertaining, or this happened quite often, my brothers would play church. They loved to play church. They would just model what they would see my father doing up at the altar, you know, turning wine into water and water into wine and doing all those symbols he would do and duties up at the altar. So they would try to cross themselves, but it would look like this. And then just imagine all the guests are sitting down, comfortable with their cocktails. You know those Episcopalians, they love their liquor. So they're all comfortable, and out walks my brother with the broom as if it's the crucifix. And then comes the offering, just like we do at our church. One of my brothers runs into the kitchen and gets one of my mother's fine china and passes it around to the guests. They put nickels and pennies. They thought it was the cutest thing. After a while, my mother cut that part out of the play acting because she got a little embarrassed. She didn't want her children to, or rather, she wanted to hold us to a high standard of behavior. In our family, we had to toe the line. And I came along, and as I got older, I joined in on the playing church. Well, one day it was very quiet in the house, and my mother went from room to room looking for us. She found us in the bathroom, baptizing her leopard skin hat in the toilet. this was my brother's closest thing to a baptismal font. Now I'm going to do a change of costume. Hang on. Now, Mark, you've got to wrap this around you because you just look so snappy. I bet Gina's going to run around the house chasing after you when you get home. There you go. Oh, by the way, that has not been washed since the baptism, but it's just toilet water. It won't hurt you. Okay, there you go. There you go. Thank you. The Shawhan family is moving to Texas. Yee-haw. Kick up your boots and jump into your saddles. We are moving from Tennessee to Beaumont, Texas, which is known as the armpit of Texas, along with Port Arthur and Orange. Now, once we get there, we hit the ground running and the entertaining starts. So one night, I believe my parents had entertained the vestry, which is the equivalent to our board of trustees. And the next day, my brother came home for his after-school snack and finished it. My mother noticed that he had a green ring around his mouth. And she said, "Stephen, what is that around your mouth?" He pointed to the cream de menthe on the counter and said, "Milkshake." My parents did not leave the liquor out on the counter anymore after that one. Sometimes my parents entertained couples or singles, and they were entertaining Dr. and Mrs. Spence. He was a local ear, nose, and throat. And Mrs. Spence wore these, of course, real diamonds, pretty diamond watch and rings. And during dinner, I was observing them and admiring them. And I said, "Mrs. Spence, are those real?" She was so gracious about it. She said, "Oh, yes, they're real." The next thing out of my mouth was, "They make fake ones." Evidently at school, I learned that there's such a thing as fake diamonds and people wore them. Well, after they left, I got a big lecture from my parents, what to ask guests and what not to. Now, this last story was told years and years, especially the church member that heard it. When the junior choir practicing was going on, the different mothers would carpool and take the kids to and from practice. And one day, she heard the boys in the back talking about what their fathers did for a living. And Chris spoke up very proudly. He said, "My dad's in charge of the drinking at the church." As you know, in Protestant religions, that they pass the wine around in the chalice during the Eucharist. So I hope you've enjoyed my storytelling. And now for the serious stuff. I have an important disclaimer before I begin. It is not my intent today to criticize or bash Christianity or any other religion. That would be against our UU values. Who is that darling baby? That's the first slide. Who is that cutest baby? That is me. Look, she's already got a frown on her face. I think that's a premonition of what was to come years down the road. As you can see, my presence in church became very early on, and I know I was baptized very quickly. The first words out of my mouth were probably God or Jesus. I wouldn't ask my mother that, though. So my brothers and I were expected to attend church every Sunday and age-appropriate activities like the junior choir, Sunday school, vacation Bible school, youth group. It went on and on and on. We were just expected to do that. And when we were doing all these activities, we were learning the Bible stories and what Christmas meant and Easter, the sacraments, a lot of information. Now, Easter week, which is it's Holy Week, excuse me, that leads up to the crucifixion of Christ, and of course, the traditional Easter Sunday service. We were approaching that week, and there are a lot of services. There's Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday, Easter Vigil Saturday, and then the Sunday service. And I complained to my parents. I said, that's all we do is church, church, church. They thought it was funny. Little did they know, years down the road, there would be cynicism for me on the religion of Christianity. When I was 12 years old, there's my confirmation class. Confirmation is a rite of passage in the Episcopal Church and also in the Catholic Church, but Episcopalians do it at 12. And there's my father with all his regalia. There's another young lady next to him, and then that's me, the shorter one. I hadn't sprung up yet. So in the confirmation class, again, more information. We had to learn the Apostles' Creed and what it meant to take the bread and the wine and what that's all about. Years later, when I was in college, I attended the Canterbury Episcopal College group. Now, I had stopped going to services because I was already burned out and I wasn't under the watchful eye of my parents. So at Canterbury, they usually had a service, but I would skip that and go to the dinner and go to the program afterwards, which was fairly benign. And I met my ex-spouse there, and we eventually married. And in our young married years, we continued our involvement in the Episcopal Church. We were small group leaders on the vestry, helped lead the college retreats at the time. And at some point, we became very burned out in all our volunteering and giving of time. We felt like we were taken advantage of by church leaders and the other members. So we stopped attending, and it was that time that we started questioning the major tenets of Christianity, such as the crucifixion. Thoughts like these: why would God have his son murdered so people could go to heaven? I mean, couldn't there have been a simpler way without all the violence? Or was it to please God? Or, as I said, for people to go to heaven? We also thought about the science, the conflict between science and religion, for me, specifically Christianity. In the reading that John did so well this morning by Dr. I believe Stenger, that we pronounced, he wrote a book called God, the Folly of Faith, the Incompatibility of Science and Religion. Now, Dr. Stenger was a particle physicist, and taking from his book, he indicates that in science, there's no hard data that proves the existence of the supernatural like Jesus and God. With those questioning that we did, we decided to leave Christianity. We found ourselves at the door of the UU Church. This was actually a fellowship in California. There we found some parallels with the covenants and beliefs in our non-Christian convictions. And it was a place that we could call home. Now, there are some other preachers' kids that have left the Christian faith. A singer named Tori Amos. Anybody heard of Tori Amos? Okay. She was popular in the 90s. I went and heard her in the late 90s when I lived in California at a concert. She was interviewed in a magazine by Miss Falonga. She writes that Tori was oppressed by the religious environment in her family, and her mother was a Calvinist and put a lot of priority on virginity. In fact, she wrote a song, a very powerful song called Crucified. And I'm going to read you a few of the lines from that song. I've been looking for a savior in these dirty streets. I've been raising up my hands, drive another nail in. Just what God needs, one more victim. As she moves through the song, she plays the piano and her anger comes out, and then in the end, she's liberated. If you haven't heard that song, I suggest that you listen to it. I can very much relate to her journey. Another more recent singer is Katy Perry. She was a preacher's daughter. And in a church leaders article, Briggs says that it's entitled Katy Perry and Why You Need to Give Your Preacher's Kids Choices. Maybe in the article, she was indicating if priests gave their children more options of not always having to go to church, that perhaps Katie might not have left the faith. I can't say that for myself. In conclusion, there is that picture again. That's the cover of a book I actually wrote during the pandemic. I took a pen name, Darby Berryhill. I didn't want to show this in the beginning because I'm not here to sell my book. It goes into many more subjects about being a priest kid in my personal journey. Excuse me. It's in the church library if you'd like to read it, or you can talk to me about it later. I've enjoyed sharing my story with you all. Thank you for listening.
Well, it's time to share our gifts, especially our treasure. We have been worshiping in our refurbished sanctuary since early September, and we're streaming each service to include as many people as we possibly can. We continue to practice indoor masking and social distancing in order to help end the spread of COVID-19 and its variants. During the past year, many of the church's expenses have continued. Some have increased since our reopening. It is vitally important for the ongoing work and health of the church that each of us fulfill our financial pledge, if at all possible. All through the pandemic, we have continued to support organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee as recipients of our Change for Change program. The recipient for this quarter is La Casa Inc., founded in 1981 as a safe haven for women impacted by domestic violence. It has grown to become the largest provider of domestic violence services in the state of New Mexico, and mind you, the sole provider for such services in our county. La Casa's mission is to support those affected by domestic violence while striving to prevent abuse and promote healthy relationships among individuals and families. The vision of La Casa is a community without domestic violence. You can make your pledge or donate to Change for Change by putting checks and change in the basket, which will be coming forward soon, by sending checks to the church or by using the give link on our church's website. And some special words that I thought were appropriate for the offertory are, let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many people, to so many of us, a community of memory and hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Our offerings help make us whole. Please come forward.
When I was a boy each week, Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word, consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two. Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still. But now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything, everything, everything's a miracle. Wine, water is not so, but an even better magic trick. Is anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, it barely wet my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world out there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent fear, 'cause everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face, say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament. Tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world out there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything, everything, everything is holy now.
If you are joining this worship service, are looking for a spiritual home, and are sympathetic with Unitarian Universalist values and principles, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces may be the place for you. We believe that when you become a member, you are entering into a warm and deep relationship with the church and our members and friends. You are becoming part of something much bigger than any of us. You're becoming part of a movement to change our community and our world. There are several routes you can take to membership. Call the church and leave a message about your interest, and a person from the membership committee will call you. Or you can sign the virtual membership book through the link in the electronic order of service.
Our closing hymn is a new old hymn by Jason Shelton. To my knowledge, it was his first UU hymn, Unitarian Universalist hymn. We dare to question. He gave it as a gift to those of us who were attending the Association for UU Music Ministries, the second conference that he and I were at. And he was inspired to begin writing these wonderful hymns. And so I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and this will give you the opportunity to swing, to move your body with the rhythms of that gospel swing that Jason is so well known for. Please rise in body or spirit.
Our closing words this morning are from Carl Sagan. The suppression of uncomfortable ideas may be common in religion or in politics, but it is not the path to knowledge, and there is no place in the endeavor of science. We do not know in advance who will discover fundamental insights. Now, please join me in saying our words to extinguish the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.